I'm horror author Paul Edwards. Today I'm reading Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue 31 from 1964. I thought some of you might enjoy flipping through this vintage monster magazine with me. Just in case you don't own your own copy of Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue 31 from 1964. Together, let's see what kinds of vintage monster goodness is in here. Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue 31 from 1964. Secrets you never knew about Lon Chaney Sr. He was a favorite of Forrest J. Ackerman. Return of the Creatures from South of the Border. Headlines from Horrorsville. And The Monster Eye. Look at things to come. Plus a mystery photo. All right. We've got Boris Karloff as the Mummy and a 50-cent cover price. This magazine, by the way, is not in top condition, but that's what makes it affordable. So let's get to it. Oops. Yikes. So Forrest J. Ackerman, because he loved terrible monster puns, he would make up nicknames for himself, like the Acker Monster. One of them that he liked to use a lot was Dr. Acula. See the Ack, Dr. Acula. Dracula. Okay, we get it, Corey. We get it. Do you recognize what movie this is from, by the way? That's from Murders in the Rue Morgue. Ooh, and this is from the 1959 version of The Mummy, starring Christopher Lee. One of my favorites. All right, let's see what we get here. All right, looks like a lot of good stuff. Let's get cracking. You know, I don't think I've even seen this before. Brave Ghouls. This 64-page hardcover book, The Brave Ghouls, is yours as a free bonus if you subscribe now. No, I've never seen that before. Any of you out there see that or have that? Let me know in the comments. Wow. All right. When they told you about upcoming horror movies, they tried to be accurate, but sometimes their predictions would not come true, either because the studio changed the name of a movie or completely canceled a movie. So, you know, you'll read through lists of upcoming movies and you're like, yes, that one happened. Yes, that one happened. Nope, that one didn't. Like, I know Seance on a Wet Afternoon happened. I know the Dunwich Horror happened. The horror of it all. I'm not sure what that is. I'm pretty sure I would have noticed if there had been a movie called The Devil's Daffodil. Okay. This is Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, behind the scenes. Yikes. Goliath and the Vampires. So when they brought back the character of the Mummy in the 1940s, the movie that started it, the reboot movie, was The Mummy's Hand. And that was pretty good. And they followed it in rapid succession by 3 sequels. Return of the Mexic Creatures. Mexican horror. It took me a while to discover Mexican horror from the mid 20th century. They had a ton of vampire movies. There were a lot of Mexican zombie movies that are dubbed into English. You can find them easily enough online. They had a whole series of them on a vampire named Nostradamus. And so it's the titles are confusing because, you know, the movie title will be, you know, The Curse of Nostradamus or something. And you think it's a character about you think it's a movie about the character Nostradamus. Nostradamus was the name of the vampire. Yikes. And they had, you know, mummies, zombies, Frankenstein monsters. Sometimes they would fight the luchadors, the wrestling superheroes. Those are wild movies. But the vampire ones, they usually did pretty straightforward. And they were very gothic. They loved doing the whole gothic vampire in a castle setting. Wow. World of the Vampires. Yep, I remember that one. There's so many of these here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to close up here, just in case you really become interested in Mexican horror movies of the 20th century, and you can screen grab these because there's too many for me to read off. I have seen some of these. I'm sure I haven't seen all of them, though, because there's just a ton of them. Think we should enter the contest? So the contest was to be a Frankenstein and make your own monster by taking pieces of different monster pictures and putting them together. That was what they wanted you to do here. See, calling all Dr. Frankensteins. Here's your chance to make monsters and make something better than money. I'm surprised they didn't do this as a quiz. Like, can you name what movie this is from and what movie this is from? This is the head of the she creature, and it's on the body of the mad scientist robot in The Phantom Creeps. I recognize this from the Angry Red Planet. What's this? Do you know? Oh, I wouldn't have got this. John Barrymore in Bulldog Drummond Comes Back. No, I wouldn't have got that. Okay. I have a feeling we probably missed the deadline for this contest. Oh boy. Exclusive preview of Horrorwood's latest monster movie, The Creeping Terror. I'm pretty sure The Creeping Terror was a couple of guys under a big rug. Yep. And it would crawl along like some gargantuan caterpillar and just crawl over the poor actors that were stuck trying to scream convincingly. Oh, there's the Creeping Terror on the loose. Oh boy. Wow. Great horror figure dies. This was Edward Van Sloan. He was in the 1931 Dracula, the 1931 Frankenstein, and the 1932 The Mummy. In all 3 cases, he was a professorial type, an academic type. Don't you just love this opening scene in the 1932 The Mummy? I know some people find that movie slow by today's standards, but even if you don't like the bulk of the movie, it's hard to knock the opening sequence where Karloff's mummy comes to life and stalks out of the sarcophagus. That is so creepy. In this, Edward Van Sloan was Dr. Waldman. Of course, the Frankenstein monster got him. That was actually probably the scariest scene in Frankenstein, to me anyway, when Dr. Waldman was going to dissect the monster and he wasn't aware that the monster was really awake and just playing possum. And you knew that the monster was going to kill him, and you were just waiting for it. But of course, Edward Van Sloan had his best role as Professor Van Helsing in Dracula. He got to be the monster hunting hero. Many of you will remember that this scene from The Golem is almost duplicated by a scene of a little girl with Lon Chaney, that's Lon Chaney Jr., as the Frankenstein monster in Ghost of Frankenstein from 1942. Yep, I hadn't thought of it before, but now that they say it, it is. Here's Edward Van Sloan's filmography. The history of Monster World magazine is a little strange. They ran 10 issues of it. The same people that printed this magazine, Famous Monsters of Filmland, ran 10 issues of a companion magazine called Monster World, which was essentially the same thing. And then they skipped the numbering of this magazine, Famous Monsters of Filmland, ahead 10 issues, which, suggests that they were counting these as 10 issues of Famous Monsters of Filmland. It's kind of strange. Oh. Test tube terror. Beast amok on college campus. Co-ed beauty captive of man monster. Students victims of terror beast. Maniacal monster on bloody trail of destruction. Every co-ed beauty prey to his fang-slashing passions. Oh my gosh. Somehow the posters always made the movie seem way more exciting than it actually was. At this college, they learned knowledge of something too horrible to be believed. Mystery photo. They give you the answer to last issue's mystery photo, and now they ask, do you recognize what this one is? Oh, here's what we need to know. Making monsters. The professionals show you how. Oh, yeah. This is Karloff's third and final go as the Frankenstein monster and son of Frankenstein. Jack Pierce would spend hours every day of filming applying the monster's makeup. And then, when the actor's done filming, you got to take it all off again. Wow. Who wouldn't want a gigantic Frankenstein? Almost 2 feet high, complete with paints and brushes. Nice. So this magazine came out in 1964, this issue. This was right in the apex of the first wave of monster kids. Kids who had grown up watching classic monster movies on late night TV starting in the late 1950s when Shock Theater started syndicating these movies. And up through the mid 60s, the kids from this era were the first wave of monster kids. I was only born in 65. I was in what they called the second wave of monster kids, those who were, the right age for this stuff in the 1970s. We had it better. We had the first wave of monster kids had paved the way for us by this kind of merchandise. So by the 1970s, there was a lot of monster merchandise out there for us. Forrest J. Ackerman, the editor of this magazine, loved Lon Chaney Sr., that is, who was a huge silent film horror star. And Forrest J. Ackerman also loved the fact that he was introducing young people to become a new generation of fans of the movies that he grew up watching and loving. So he ran tons of articles on Lon Chaney Sr. and featured Lon Chaney Sr. as often as he could, really. And there is Lon Chaney Sr. with his famous makeup kit. He was called the Man of 1,000 Faces because he was both the actor and the makeup man. In other words, he would do his own special effects makeup. And some of his creations were, well, look for yourself. This is from his most famous lost film, London After Midnight. Other lost horror movies have been found in the past. Mystery of the Wax Museum was one of them. The Devil's Castle was one of them. So my hope is that within my lifetime, someone will find somewhere a copy of London After Midnight. Never say never. But plenty of Lon Chaney's films survive, and here he is as the Hunchback of Notre Dame, one of his most famous outfits. Here he is in Mockery and in Miracle Man. Look at that. Here, Forey is talking about some of the myths. There was a long-standing story that on his deathbed, Lon Chaney passed on his famous makeup kit, to his son, Creighton, who became Lon Chaney Jr. and went on to have his own career as a successful horror actor. But Forey is debunking that myth here. That's apparently not true. The Giant of Metropolis. Oh my gosh. Yikes. Stop. We interrupt this magazine to bring you an announcement to make your blood run cold. The publisher of Famous Monsters, Jim Warren, is now my prisoner. This is a guy from Creepy, which was also a Warren publication. Oh, monster mail order time. Oh. How to have a spook show. That's one I would like. Horrible Melting Man. Yikes. Now, there was a film called The Incredible Melting Man, but I'm 95% sure it hadn't come out yet when this ad ran. Coincidence? Did you have any of these models, these monster models. Time to send away for home movies, snippets of your favorite horror movies. They were like 10-minute long reels from a feature film. But it's 1964. There was no home video. That was the best you could do in terms of being able to watch a movie at home. Look, now own a real Mystery Man mask. Yikes. See, now I like the Frankenstein radio speaker. I do not like the giant 10-foot inflatable rubber snake. The best use I can think of for this would be to creep into another kid's yard in the dead of night and inflate it so that when he wakes up in the morning, he thinks that there's a giant snake. But, you know, it's a gag that would work once, and then you just have this 10-foot inflato snake in your garage forevermore. Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. I'm not sure they should be selling that. I hope they have a lot of disclaimers on the package. Yikes. Oh, gosh. Back issues of FM. How could you say no? All right, that was an awesome romp through vintage monster kid stuff. Listen, if you enjoy classic monsters and vintage horror, check out my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. I'm self-published on Amazon. I've got 6 novels. They're a series of novels that are all set in a haunted forest. Each novel brings a completely new cast of characters into Mourner's Woods, where they face all kinds of different otherworldly threats, monsters, banshees, ghosts, and sometimes things even worse than that. Please check out my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. They're available on Amazon. My name is Paul Edwards. Thanks for spending some time looking through Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 31 with me. This was a good one. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.